Hello students, welcome back to my channel. So let us continue learning database. Today we will be talking everything about file organization. Now first thing, let us understand why do we require to study about file organization. Basically when we are looking or we are talking about database is once again is nothing but the collection of data. So we will of course be storing them in a secondary memory. So when we are storing in a secondary memory, that is where the concept of file comes, and how we are organizing the file is also an important topic which we need to know when we are talking about database or database management system. That's the reason we are learning about file organization also. So as you can see in the diagram, file organization can be divided into sequential access and random access, which is nothing but basically depending on how we are going to access the file. So sequentially, if we are accessing, that is again divided into self-direct addressing method, and also it can be divided into sequential access based on the keys. So we are going to see in detail that what is the meaning of these two different types of sequential access. Similarly, if I am accessing the file, data from the file randomly, then it can be divided into direct self-address generation method or ISAM. Okay. So let us go ahead and see them one by one. First, let us see what is a sequential file organization means. So as you know that sequential is nothing but one after the other. So when I say sequential, as the diagram what you can see here, I have record 1, record 2, record 3, like that I have stored my records in a sequential manner. So records are stored one after the another in an ascending or descending order determined by the key field of the records. Now there is something called as a, there will be a something called as a key field for each of the record, which will mention the which what kind of a record, or it's like a name given to that particular record, we can say. Okay, so that key field, depending on that, we will be storing them in ascending or descending order. Sequentially organized files that are processed by computer systems are normally stored on a storage media such as magnetic tape, punched cards, or magnetic disks. So as I told you before, this file organization is nothing but basically we are talking about how database is stored in the secondary storage. Okay, so these magnetic tape, punched cards, and magnetic disks are nothing but our secondary storage. So here sequentially organized files are processed by the computer system, and this is stored, all these records will be stored or are stored in the secondary storage. So to access these records, the computer must read the file in sequence from the beginning. The first record is read and processed first, then the second record in the file, and so on. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? Suppose I want to read the file R6, which means I have to start from R1, since it is a sequential file organization. So no matter whatever the record number is, you have to start from the beginning and you will be moving to the next. You cannot randomly or directly access that particular record. Okay, so to locate a particular record, the computer program must read in each record in sequence and compare its key field to one of the that is needed. The retrieval search ends only when the desired key matches. So like we spoke before, these records have something called as a key value. Okay, so depending on these key values, so suppose I want the data which CPU wants is stored in a particular record which has a key value K3, and then what I need to do, I have to start sequentially. So I'll first come and compare here. This is K1, this is K3, not matching. This is K2, this is K3, not matching. When I come here, I'll get my match. So I will compare the key values in which way? In a sequential file organization. So basically sequential file organization is nothing but here I'm going to store all my record in the form in an ascending or a descending order of the key value, and it will be accessed sequentially no matter what. No random access is allowed here. So that is about your sequential file organization. Let us talk about random or direct access file organization. So what does this do? Direct access file organization allow immediate direct access to individual record on the file. Okay, so unlike our sequential, it is allowing me to directly access. The records are stored and retrieved using a relative record number. So here we need to make a point that here we are using something called as a record number, which gives the position of the record to the file. So unlike in the previous case where we were comparing the key value, here what I'm doing is I'm directly taking a record value and accessing it. So this type of organization also allows the file to be accessed sequentially. So not necessary that it has to be random. If you want it, if you require it, you can also go in a sequential. Wherein which in a sequential file, it was restricted for us to access it sequentially only. It is not allowed otherwise, but in random or direct access file, we used the record number and we can do both. That is your direct you can do as well as you can do sequential. The direct access storage device has the capability of directly reaching any location like we told before. So that is what this arrow mark is, nothing but it is directly I am able to access the related data, or the data whichever I am looking for can be directly accessed looking at the record number. So that is what your random or direct access file organization is all about. Next type is self or direct addressing. Now how it is different? Now under self or direct addressing, a record key is used as its relative address. Okay, so as you can see in an instruction, we will have something called as effective address. Now what is this instruction? This instruction is nothing but a part of a program. Okay, a program is a collection of instructions. So each instruction will have a effective address of a variable or a data whichever we want to access. Using that effective address, I am going to access the data from my memory, isn't it? So that is how it works. Now here in self-direct addressing, a record key used as its relative address. So whatever the relative address we are talking about, or the effective address we are talking about, the variable, that is nothing but the record key, okay, of that particular memory. Therefore, anyone can compute the record's address from the record key and the physical address of the record of the first record in the file. So if there is a file and if I know the first address and if I know the record key, then I will compute, that is record key plus the very first address, then I can access that particular variable. That is what the meaning of this. So as you can see, anyone can compute. So we need to compute the record's address. Now this record's address is nothing but the required record, whichever you want to access from the record key. Now what is this record key? Record key belongs to a particular key which belongs to the record we want to access, and the physical address of the first record. So that is what I said. If there are a set of records stored in the memory, if I know the very first address of the record, then I will take the record key of the record. For example, I want to access the record R5. I have some key value K. I will take the first value of the record of this set of records and I will add it with the key value. With that, I will get the location of the record I want to calculate. So this is how I will do self or direct addressing. That is what meaning of this, which means directly I can compute by myself and I can get the record whichever I want. Okay, so what is the advantage of self-addressing? No need to store an index. There is no separate index is required. Now what is this index? We will see in the next type. Disadvantages are the records must be of fixed length. If some records are deleted, the space remains empty. That becomes an issue for us. Okay, so that is the advantage as well as the disadvantage of the self-direct addressing method. This is the third method what we have seen. So now let us see the next one. Next one is random access method. Now what is this random access method? Here records are stored on the disk by using a hashing algorithm. Okay, now what is this hashing algorithm? We won't be going in depth, but there will be something called as a hash function. Okay, hash function using which we can generate a hash value for each of the record. This will be a random numbers which get generated, and for each number, for example 1 2 3, if I'm getting, it will be mapped to that particular record. So this is nothing but a hash values. Okay, so records stored on the disk by using a hashing algorithm. The key field is fed through the hashing algorithm and the relative address is created. So that is what I said. For every key field we will have the relative address will be given. So for this we will give certain address. This will be like a memory address, suppose. Okay, for every Using the hashing algorithm, what is the key field, key value we are generating? For that, we will map every record. This address gives the position on the disk where the record to be stored. So with that, I can find out the record's address. So that is what a random access is all about. Now the desired records can be directly accessed using randomizing procedure or hashing without accessing all the records in the file. What's the meaning of that? If at all I have certain value, I can directly use this hash function, find the key, get the address. I need not go sequentially. I need not do the any other computation. Okay, so that is why it is different from other functions. Now let us see the different advantages and disadvantages of this type of an access. The access to and retrieval of a record is quick and direct. Transaction need not be stored and placed in sequence prior to processing. Best used for online transaction. These kind. Okay, what are the disadvantages? Address generation overhead is involved. Now, what do you mean by overhead? Now, address generation, we need to have a hashing function. It will generate a key, and that key I need to add it to an address. So there is a lot of work involved here. Okay, so address generation overhead is involved for accessing each record due to hashing function. May be less efficient in the use of storage space than sequentially organized file. Why? Because we need a separate space for key, we need a separate space for address, and then we will be accessing the memory, where in which in sequential access we directly have records in the memory and we are sequentially accessing them. So these all things becomes an overhead, that is extra. Okay, so that is a disadvantage when it comes to the hashing function if you are using, right? So let us see, this is the last type, which is indexed sequential access method, which is also called as ISAM. Okay, so what is this indexed sequential access method? ISAM is a hybrid between sequential and direct access file organization. So what do? We knew that in direct access file organization we had a overhead. So when it comes to time, we were saying that sequential is better than direct access, but with the direct access I was able to access the records directly, unlike sequential where I have to go through all the records one by one. So that is why this is the better improvement over those both methods. Okay, it involves both the advantages of both the sequential as well as direct access file organization. The records within the file are stored sequentially, okay, but direct access to individual record is possible. So that is what I said. So sequentially was taking less time. Also, it did not have a direct access. So direct access was taken from the direct access method, and sequentially storing the data or records is used from sequential. So as you can see here, records are stored sequentially, then we have an address, and then directly I am able to access the address. So the advantages of both the methods has been combined together and made a hybrid, which is nothing but your indexed sequential access method or ISAM. So that is why it is comparatively better than both of them. So indexing permit access to selected records without searching the entire file. So let us see what are the advantage as well as the disadvantage of these. So ISAM permits efficient and economical use of sequential processing. So we know that it is efficient and economical. Why? Because in hashing or indexed access, we had the overhead of lot of functions. But here it is permitting us to use the advantages of sequential processing techniques where the activity ratio is high. Permits direct access also. Okay, so what we wanted is a sequential as well as the direct access. So this is the combination of both the worlds and it will help us. So that is the advantage. What could be the disadvantage? Files must be stored in a direct access storage device. Okay, hence relatively expensive hardware and software resources are required. So if it was sequential, we could have used the old style magnetic tapes and such devices. But here, since direct access storage devices are required, those are expensive. Access to records may be slower than direct file here, less efficient in the use of storage space than some other alternative. So always there will be certain kinds of disadvantage, but here the advantage is we are using the direct as well as the sequential methods benefits, but Yet there are certain disadvantages of this as well. So this is about file organization. So we have seen all the different types of file organization. I hope these videos are helping you all in your studies. Do let me know if there is any other subject which you want me to take up. Let me know in the comments. I will surely start another playlist related to that. It could be any subject, BCA, MSc, MCA. So I'll surely come back and do those videos. Thank you so much.